I'm Greg Garbos of Four Season Tools. We're going to talk about now is some of the different components to air inflate your structure. In a previous video or a different video, we talked about how to use an air inflation sealer. Since our roll-up sides, our roof, and our roll-up ridge vent all have 2 layers of poly, you need to make sure when you air inflate your roll-up components that you seal the edges so that the air is trapped inside of that area. Now we're going to talk about air inflation blowers and jumper hoses. So what I have in this hand is an example of a jumper hose. This black jumper hose is exactly this piece right here. And what it does is it allows the inflated air from the roof of your tunnel to transfer down to also inflate your roll-up sidewalls. This jumper hose here comes with these 2 little discs that twist off on each side. What we do is we start by putting poly patch tape on where we're going to cut our X's, and then we cut a little X, we put our jumper hose through that X, and then we make sure that we don't go through the next piece of poly. We've got a little friend here named Georgia who's helping describe how this works. What we do is we put this jumper hose through the first layer of plastic, and then we put a second piece of poly patch tape on the back side to try to make sure that we're not tearing the other side of the plastic. We've got it here in our roll-up side and again here in our roof. So that's what these jumper hoses are for. Right here we have an air inflation kit for outside air. There are 2 different options when you inflate your tunnel. You can choose to use inside air or outside air. The outside air inflation kit is slightly more expensive, but it is definitely a better system. When you use inside air, you typically have a moist environment inside of your high tunnel, and that moist air gets in between the 2 layers of your high tunnel and causes condensation in between the 2 layers. Since the name of the game in vegetables is getting as much sunlight as you possibly can, you don't want that light to be blocked by the moisture in between the layers. So what we do is we have here an outside air inflation kit. This outside air inflation kit has a couple different components, and it all comes in one box. So inside this box is a couple different components. I'm going to show you what these are. It comes with its own jumper hose without the ends on it, without the little caps on it. This jumper hose runs from the intake of your blower, which is a squirrel cage blower, down to the outside of your structure. There's a little aluminum piece with a disc that rotates open, and what this piece is it goes on the outside of the structure. It doesn't go in between the 2 layers, but it goes on the outside of the structure, and this is the intake for the air that's going to go inside the blower. There's also a box that carries the squirrel cage blower inside of it. There's some instructions inside of it about how it's all mounted. And then there's another piece here that comes in a bag, which is the mounting bracket for the blower. This mounting bracket has a couple different components to it as well. It's got an aluminum piece. This piece goes in between your hoop and your plastic. You put it in between there, and you put it in with self-tapping screws. I was very careful when I installed this to make sure I was keeping the plastic away from the sharp edges of this bracket, and as soon as I had it installed, I immediately put some duct tape over that to make sure that all the sharp edges don't tear the plastic. After this was installed, this little piece right here, this white piece, is a separator plate or an air deflector that allows the gap in between the first and second layer of poly. So we unwiggle wired what we needed to, took out some of the plastic attachment wire so we could get our hands in there, put this piece in between it, and as soon as we had this piece in, right, we then cut an X where our blower went through, which was already mounted to the bracket, coupled the 2 pieces, and then rotated the deflector to lock it into place. One thing to be really careful of is that there's 3 bolts that attach the squirrel cage blower to this mounting bracket. Since they're just inside of this aluminum piece, and aluminum is a really soft metal, you do not want to over-tighten these bolts. The kit comes with little lock nuts, and a 3/8 wrench works nice, but I definitely wouldn't use a drill or an impact drive or anything out. You want to just get them snug so that there's no gaps, and then you have it installed. You also need to make sure that you get a power cord. It's really easy to wire it in to the air inflation blower. Now that we kind of understand the different components, let's look around the structure to figure out where they all go. We have an air inflation blower on this side. Since this building has a ridge vent, what we do is we have an air inflation blower on both sides of the ridge vent. So on this side, this blower is inflating this side of the roof plastic, and it's inflating through this jumper hose the roll-up sidewalls. If there was no ridge vent on this building, we'd have 1 blower. It would inflate the entire roof plastic, and there'd be a jumper hose on each side. Since this building has a ridge vent, if we look all the way up here to the peak of the ridge vent, you'll notice that there's another jumper hose that connects the roof plastic on this side to the roll-up ridge vent. We make sure to do it on the top part of the roof plastic. That way we can get it all the way up to the top of the ridge vent, still allow the ridge vent to open up as much as possible. So there's another small jumper hose up here. Over here on the far side of the building, we have another air inflation blower And this blower right here inflates this side of the roof plastic, and through this jumper hose also inflates our roll-up sides on this side of the structure. So because we've got a ridge vent, we've got two outside air inflation blowers. Then we've got two jumper hoses connecting our roof plastic to our roll-up sidewall plastic. And only because it has a ridge vent, we've got another jumper hose up top. If we didn't have a ridge vent, we'd have one blower and just two jumper hoses. Those are some of the different components that you need to air inflate your structure.